I'm basically going to tell this story right from the beginning, and that would be my beginning. It's a little different than everybody else's beginning. It started just a little before the hurricane. I was in the process of selling my business, Gutter King, and kind of liquidating all the components of it. And Crystal, my girlfriend at the time, had been watching the weather and had been keeping me posted as Hurricane Katrina was cutting through the Gulf. Now, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the storm, even after it hit the first couple of days. But Crystal kept paying attention and seeing all the different horrific stories that were popping on the news. And by Sunday, September 4th, we basically determined that we needed to go. And that's when we heard the Mayor Nagin interview that had been on the radio everywhere.
People are dying. They don't have homes. The city of New Orleans will never be the same.
The Lamar Dixon Expo Center was a staging area for a lot of different groups. There was National Guard people there. There were State Farm agents that were there doing, all kinds of assessment after the damage. There was police officers associations, sheriff's departments that were bivouacked there. We started to hear all of these animals. We didn't hear it before. We'd been outside. We'd been outside at the refugee center. We'd been helping out, but we didn't hear this noise. This noise was different. This was a growing kind of rumble almost of animals. And we knew the next thing that we were going to do when we came back into the facility was to go right back to the back where those barns were, where we heard all the noise of the animals. As soon as I opened up the door to my car, this woman who had a badge on, Renee, walked by briskly, and she's like, "We need somebody with a digital camera." And I'm like, I had all my camera gear. So I hopped out of the car, grabbed my camera, caught up with her at intake, and her and Crystal were going to take notes as I took photographs. There was a separation of people's pets and themselves. They were being evacuated out, and the pets were being left behind. Well, this was causing a huge problem that was just now really kind of blowing up. And I'm thinking it's going to take me maybe a day or two to take all these pictures. The problem is the animals just kept pouring in and pouring in and pouring in. There was probably maybe 500, 600 animals when I started taking the pictures, and 3.5 days later when I finished taking the pictures, there was just under 5,000 animals that were already checked in and starting to be moved out of Lamar Dixon. There were so many volunteers now that were starting to stream down into the Gulf and trying to help out that people didn't have any idea. They just knew that they were going out there, they were going to find dogs in the streets or find dogs in some of the houses, and they were going to bring them out, feed, water them, take them back, and hopefully hook them back up with their owners. It seemed like for everybody, they were experiencing everything as this really fast blur of time going by and things happening so fast. The days would start at 4, 5, 6 in the morning if people had gone to bed at all, and they'd end at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, again, if they went to bed at all. In this whole process of watching this whole thing take place, you could understand, the enormity of it based on the chaos of it. So many people were really upside down about the fact that, so many terrible things were happening. It was just an emotionally wrought out, wrung out, unbelievable place to be. Everybody was really, and everybody felt like everything was moving so fast. So there was this sense of this blur of time. But for me, ever since I got there, my feeling had been that everything slowed down. I could not tell you who was in charge. I don't think anybody could tell you who was in charge. There was the people that we kept interacting with and meeting with. There was the ASPCA that was there, the Humane Society of the United States that was there, IFAW, the International Fund for Animal Welfare, was there, as well as a whole host of other organizations. And again, I started to notice that the paperwork went from being very involved and to be very specific to only just numbers, to then photographing that animal. And the animals, went from being pretty clean, in pretty good shape, to a couple, 3 days into it, you could see them, they were a little more beat up. The animals were taking a little bit more of a beating. Nothing in United States history, specifically as it involves domestic animals, had ever happened that was this enormous, ever. And people didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, even people when they got down there for a day or two, I mean, they would be shell-shocked once they realized how big the problem was when they tried to get their head around it. You know, it was way bigger than people even comprehend. In this situation, this post-Katrina landscape, it's post-apocalyptic is what it was. I mean, it's like they dropped a nuclear bomb on New Orleans. I mean, the effect, really. You're seeing very surreal sights that you maybe you've seen in the movies, maybe. So it's very strange to have all this devastation around you, but yet feel so good about yourself, you know, because of what we're doing. It's like a drug. I called it the juice, and you could see when people had the juice. You know, it would just get in them. They would be so infected about what they were doing. The juice is like a drug, and it drives people. And it makes people do all kinds of things, work beyond their abilities, you know, work beyond their physical limitations and just keep going. Your vision almost goes like this. For something that is so big, people's vision almost goes, whoop, they try to get their hands and their head and their minds around stuff. You know, I wanted to know a lot of different reasons why certain things were happening. You know, why did it seem like nobody was in control at Lamar Dixon? Why were all these animals, you know, in the streets? Everybody's story is unique. Everybody's story is interesting. Everybody's story in that situation is heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, meaningful. And from what we can tell, it was happening thousands of times over. This is after being in and around Greater New Orleans, Gonzales, Louisiana, Lamar Dixon Expo Center, in and out of the city now. The first day it was open to people, you know, not specifically to rescues. We were there, you know, trying to really absorb and understand what was taking place on the animal side. Me being, in essence, a regular guy, somebody who is not focused on coming down to cover this, I've been given a lot of power by the fact that I have a camera. And I can go and photograph stuff and say, I'm here to photograph this, or I'm here to cover this, or I'm here to look at this. And people believe you, they allow you to do it, and it gives, you know, you have access to what's going on, and all of a sudden you have the power of the camera and being able to do something useful with it. And by the end of our trip, by the time it was time to start to leave for home around the 19th of September, right before Hurricane Rita was coming in, we think we've done what we'd come down here to do, and we're going to start making our way back home. And by the time we got home, I think it was like the 22nd or something of September, my world had pretty much changed. That 2-week process of being down in the Gulf, the 2-week process of that intense interaction, you know, with people and animals in this very surreal environment changed me.
I'd like you to meet a very special person. She rescued on her own 1,300 animals. Please welcome Jane Garrison.
I wanted us to rescue as many animals as we could, and that should have been the goal of everyone.
I know, isn't it awesome?
I can't believe what's happening. Is it possible that you tell me
Dropped it off.
what to say?
So I'm not sure how that's going to work.
If I say it, will you stay? Because I've only just begun to
Katie Schiffer.
Earl Howard Jones.
The talent.
everything is happening.